It's obviously important to know what you should be doing for knee pain, but I've found that it's also really beneficial to know what you shouldn't be doing. So in this video, we're going to cover the things that you should be doing, the things that you shouldn't be doing, the things that you should avoid, because that'll cause you a lot more pain down the road. When we're looking at the knee, we need to be thinking about what bones are involved. So we have our femur right here, and then we have our tibia. So what's happening at the femur right here? The femur goes up into the hip right here and attaches to the pelvis. And then also the tibia goes down here at the ankle. Now, I have all this range of motion at my ankle and I have all this range of motion at my hip. It's really important that I understand that my knee is a consequential joint. It deals with what my hip and my ankle give it. So we're going to go through in this video the do's and the don'ts of what's happening at the knee because of what's happening at the hip and the ankle, because that's where movement patterns come from. Whether we're loading our hip, we're loading our knee, we're loading our lower back, or we're loading our ankle more, that's going to dictate what type of injuries that we have over time. And so we want to go through each one of them, what the range of motion should be, but also how much strength we should have and how we should reinforce it. Ankle mobility is really important. While we're walking, we should have 10 degrees of dorsiflexion. We should have 10 degrees of bend right here at the ankle. While I'm stepping through my gait pattern, I need to have 10 degrees. If my knee is bent and I'm running, then I need to have 20 degrees. So that's using two different muscles, but it's also the range of motion is really important, because if my ankle doesn't bend enough, then my knee's going to bend early and that's going to cause some irritation. Hip extension is also really important, because we should get full hip extension when we're walking. We should also get full hip extension while we're running. So when I'm running through, I need to be pushing off of my hip and I should be using my glute. If I don't do that, I'm going to cause problems at the knee, but I'll also cause problems at the ankle. And that's going to be an issue, because I'm going to be pushing off too much with my ankle and too much with my knee. I need to be using my hips. That's the biggest muscle group in the body, in our hips. Our glutes are the biggest muscle group in the body. So we've got to activate them. We got to keep them active. There's a guy out of LA that does research on the glutes, and he'll do a brain scan, and he's showing that over time, the more that we sit, the less our glutes are active. And so we want to make sure that our glutes are active all the time, regardless of how much we sit. So we're going to put together exercise programs for our clients to make sure that they're firing their glutes as much as possible. It's really important that we figure out the ways that we load our knee. If we are creating a sharp edge, so think about the knee as like a ledge. So if this is a ledge, it's really sharp. There's a rope coming down and we got a little guy hanging off of the ledge right here. And if this is that sharp, then it's going to cause some fraying right here in the rope. If I'm back like this is a flatter edge. It's not going to cause nearly as much fraying. So I want to keep my knees in good position so I don't get that fraying. And you can feel it when you're standing up and you drop down right here. You'll feel a burning and some compression right here on the knees. And then when I come back like this, my knees have not nearly as much pressure on them. And that's what we want to do with our knee, is we want to think about how are we loading it and how much irritation are we getting, because that's going to dictate how much we're going to need to get rid of inflammation. Make sure you subscribe to our channel. We want to make sure that you get all the information that you need. One of the videos, if you don't get a notification, might be the video that you actually need. So we want to make sure that you're getting better and you're improving, and we build that trust, because on this channel, we're going to be posting videos consistently on the things that we do in the clinic that help our clients, and we want you to benefit from it too. One of the things that we always talk to clients about is what they're doing with their knees when they're sitting. So a lot of us are sitting at desks for long periods of time. And what happens is we start doing things like this. So I'm starting to twist up. I'm putting a lot of pressure on the inside of my knee. It's an okay thing as long as we don't have any irritation, as long as we don't have any pain in our knees. If we have pain in our knees, these are things when I start twisting over to the side like this, I'm putting a lot of pressure on the inside of my knee. The weak spots of my knee are the inside and the front. Those are the areas that we have the most problems with. So me doing this all the time, if I'm doing this for 3-4 hours during the day, that's going to cause me problems. So I don't want to put pressure on my knee like that. So if you go out to the side, that's okay. I can go out to the side. I'm not putting pressure on the inside of my knee. The outside of my knee is less likely to cause me problems, but if it starts bothering you, you need to address that as well. But most of the time, it's the inside of the knee, and we'll get clients that come in, they do this, put their feet up on their chair and they'll twist back and forth. So we're unconsciously doing it, and it's okay. We're unconsciously putting pressure on the inside of our knee and we're twisting it up, and then I'm putting it back here and I'm just constantly having pressure on it. So repeated movements and prolonged postures are the reasons that we have chronic injuries. So we've got to identify those things. I want to identify and make sure that I'm not doing this consistently. So make sure that you're commenting if you have this problem. If it's something that you're dealing with, it's causing irritation, let us know if this is something that you do, because a lot of people are going to identify with that, and we want to make sure that everybody's getting better that follows this channel. So I want you to make sure that you're doing things that are positive for your knees. So if you put your feet together, then your knees can be together or your knees can be apart. If your feet are apart, then your knees can be apart, but they can't be together. This is a resting position that's going to cause you a lot of irritation and pain over the long term. So we want to make sure that we're not in this position. This is the only position that we should not be in, is feet apart and knees together. Everything else is okay. We can twist up. I just don't want to be out here. This would be the worst of it, is where my feet are way out to the side. I'm twisting up my ankles and I'm putting pressure on the inside of my knee. It's just going to cause me irritation. So identify these movement patterns, identify these prolonged positions, and then change them if they're bad for you. When clients come in, we always look at their squat position. And we say, show me a squat, whatever you would do for a squat. If somebody was saying do body weight squats, show it to us, right? And so we only want them to go about 45 degrees, which is about here, right? So you don't have to go down really far, but I want you to identify what position you get in. If you're dropping down into a squat and your knees drift forward past your toes when you're at 45 degrees right here, then you're putting a lot of pressure on your knees. If you go down to 90 degrees, then you're going to shift forward even more. If you're coming down and you shift your weight onto your toes because you can't get back, I feel a ton of pressure on my knees when I do that. Like, we don't want to put pressure on our knees. We want to evenly distribute between our knees and our hips. So I do not want to have a knee heavy squat that's going to cause me irritation consistently over time. That is a big don't. Don't push your knees forward when you're doing a squat. We want to shift our hips back. The better we can shift our hips back, if we can exaggerate it a little bit in the beginning, then it's going to be really beneficial. I shift my hips back. My knees can get to my toes, but not in front of my toes. That's my rule of thumb. Your knees can get to your toes, but not in front of your toes. The positive movement that we want to work on is shifting our hips back and doing a hip hinge. So typically I'll do it against a wall. I'll measure my foot away from the wall, and then I'll allow my face to come with my chest. So my chest comes down, my face is in line with it. I'm reaching back with my butt and I'm coming up. So my hip is hinging back and forward. I'm allowing my knees to bend right here, but I'm not coming forward with my knees. So my lower leg is like a stake. I drove it into the ground. It maintains a neutral vertical position. I'm shifting my hips back and then my hips forward. Hips back and hips forward. Is an easy motion, but it's uncomfortable in the beginning because we're not used to squatting in that way. I didn't do it when I was younger. I didn't do it until I became a physical therapist. And then I learned these movement patterns so I can reinforce how much my glutes are firing. So when I'm doing this, I want to act like a robot, and I go, I make a bunch of noises. I do a bunch of stupid things to make sure that I'm doing the right movement patterns. I'm going to shift my hips back, shift my hips forward. I can even get to the ground right here and pick something up using just my hips. My back stays in a neutral position. My knees bend, but my lower leg is vertical, so I'm not putting a bunch of pressure on my knees. If you think about that, how we're putting pressure, if we have a sharp ledge right here, that's going to cause irritation on the knee. We want to avoid that. So I don't want to put too much pressure on my knees. I'm going to bend at my knee. I'm going to use my quad, but I want to use my glutes a whole lot more. When we watch people do a lunge, a lot of times what we'll see is them drifting inside. So their femur right here drifts inside. It puts a lot of pressure on the inside and the front of the knee. So their knee will get in front of their toe and will twist inside. So we want to avoid that. So when I'm doing a lunge, I want to shift my knee to the outside and maintain that position. So what we'll do with clients is we'll do a backward lunge. So I'm going to start in this position. I'm gonna reach back, my lower leg stays vertical, and I'm driving forward. Now, from this angle, you can see that my femur is not rotating inward. I'm keeping it outside. So that's gonna take your glute. So you're gonna have really good glute activation to be able to maintain that position. Now you can watch me from the side. So now I'm reaching back and coming back up. This is a modified lunge. I don't have to go down to 90 degrees. I can just do 45 degrees. What we want to think about when we're doing these exercises is to always do a modified position, do 45 degrees, do something less than what's most challenging, because we want to be successful with them. If you are not in pain, you can challenge yourself as much as you want. But if you're in pain, we want to do less than what is too challenging to maintain a good position. So we want to be successful with these exercises. I want to maintain a good position, and then I don't want to push past that because you're in pain. So that's the challenge, is making sure that we get our brain right, because a lot of us, and me included, have an issue with pushing ourselves a little bit too hard. When I'm hurting, I want to decrease the amount of load on my knees, and I want to take some of that stress away. So what I'm going to do is shift back 45 degrees and drive back up. Less than 10% of my weight is going on my back leg. I'm just balancing by tapping, and then I'm coming down. My chest goes down to where it's almost touching my thigh. And so that's going to allow me to use more of my glute. My glute fires really well right here. If I shift forward, my glute does not fire as well, and I have a lot of pressure on my knee. If I come here, I can poke into my knee. So that's what we want to be thinking about when we're doing a lunge. We want to do a modified lunge, make sure that the femur stays to the outside, and then we're driving our foot back, putting very little pressure on that back foot, and that front leg is doing most of the work. Another extremely positive exercise is doing a single leg stance toe tap. So I'm single leg stance, so I'm going to do a hip hinge. I'm driving back right here. I'm going to shift my weight over to the side, all my weight's on this leg, and I'm going to do a toe tap, just catching my balance right here, and I'm watching for wiggle. So you can look in the mirror with this exercise. I'm watching for wiggle like this. I don't want my knee wiggling inward, and I definitely don't want it going inside my second toe. So I don't want it going inside my second toe. If it goes inside my second toe, then it's causing irritation on the inside of that knee. So I'm driving it outside the second toe, doing a tap right here, and maintaining that position, just keeping the knee as still as possible. And then I'm going to switch legs. I'm doing the same thing, maintaining this position. This isn't something that you can do just right off the bat. You need to be looking at it and building up that glute strength. We'll post more videos on how we build up the glute strength. It's got to be a gradual thing. It takes 2 to 4 weeks to get motor activation to wake up a muscle. It takes 4 to 6 weeks to start building strength. So don't push yourself too fast and too hard right here. If you're having knee pain, then we need to gradually build it up. So I'm going to maintain this position and tap out to the side without having too much wiggle. And that's a successful exercise. I'm successfully executing the exercise. That's the most important thing with these exercises, is that you're successful with them and you don't have too much wiggle and you don't have aberrant motions or problems with your motions. When we're thinking about our knee and how we're going to load it, we want to use our glutes as much as possible. So I want to keep my Superman emblem, Superwoman emblem, I want them to keep them stacked over my belt buckle. So I'm going to move from the side right here and drive over and drive over and drive over. What I don't want to do is step over myself like this. So that's me not using my glutes at all. I'm causing hip impingement right here. I'm getting internal rotation. I'm grinding that hip joint together. And it's not a positive position for my knee. If I'm going to turn this way and I drive off the inside of this knee, I'm going to put a ton of pressure on it. And that's how a lot of people get ACL tears. They go to cut and they twist, that femur twists up like this. And so we want to keep that stress off the knee. So I can do that by pushing off of my hip and I'm driving this way. This is a positive movement pattern that I want to reinforce. So anytime you have the opportunity to reinforce that movement pattern, we should be doing it. I'm driving through here and then stepping over and driving through here. And I want to take my time and be slow with it. Even if you're in the kitchen, you're washing dishes, I want to step and move right here. I want to step and move right here. I don't want to tweak my hips and I don't want to tweak my knee when I'm walking around in the kitchen. Those are just bad movement patterns that irritate the knee. Positive movement patterns have rules to them. So with the knee, we want to keep our knee behind the toes and we want to keep them outside the second toe. So if we're following those rules, then we have positive movement patterns, and we want to put a program behind that. So we want to develop our glute strength and make sure that we're maintaining our femur rotating outward. Weakness in the hip is going to cause us to go into internal rotation at the femur. So we want you to watch out for that, because that's going to cause the irritation. The problem that people have with their knees is that they constantly have irritation. They're just tapping at it, tapping at it, tapping at it, and irritating it over time. And then inflammation just keeps spilling over and causing pain. So the better we can be at getting positive movement patterns, the better you're going to feel. And it comes from strengthening up the glutes and having really good ankle mobility. The biggest question, is there something that you're doing that's causing some irritation? With some of the things we went through in this video, are there bad positions that you're getting your knee in? My wife does this. She just rests her leg like this and her knee bothers her, and I catch her all the time. Now, I don't say it all the time because it doesn't do well for me, but she does sit in this position a lot, and I have to get her attention and push it out to the side, and she catches herself. But I'm not joking. It's probably 5 times a day on the weekend when we're together. She's putting her leg out like this, and she's just resting on her ligaments in her knee and just irritating the crap out of it. Ligaments and tendons, all of it. If we're at end range, we're causing that irritation. So we want to put a program behind this, but we want to identify, what are the cigarettes? What's the irritation that we're doing? Why are we doing it? Can we get into positive movement patterns and keep our knees in good position so we don't irritate them consistently? Another one is just falling on the inside of your foot, just resting your legs together. I want to maintain my body weight on the outside of my feet as much as possible. I want to make sure that I'm using muscles, I'm using my glutes. We are energy efficient creatures, so we are going to want to rest as much as possible, and that's subconscious. It's unconscious movement. So I want to make sure that when I'm conscious about it, when I'm thinking about it, I'm maintaining my pressure on the outsides of my feet, and I'm decreasing the amount of negative movement patterns I'm doing. So make sure that you comment and let us know if this is something you're doing. Make sure you hit the subscribe button or the notification bell, because we want to make sure that you're getting quality information. We're trying to protect you from bad information over the long term. I'll see you in the next video. Get active and stay mobile.